He's funny.
So funny, dude. The guy is so funny.
And I don't
Watching his,
understand how people don't get his sense of humor. It
yeah,
seems to me, I mean, I could understand how young people wouldn't get it because it's a little, and it is a little caustic. And there are moments when it's downright childish, but that's
yeah,
kind of the fun.
right.
If it,
Yeah.
nanny, nanny, nanny goat, I know you are, but what am I?
hmm I don't know. Yeah, it is an interesting character. I mean, I don't know if it's a healthy character type he has, or a healthy character he has, but it is fun to watch, and I don't know. I like what he's doing. But then my parents went. I was shocked,
But
but
how would you want to say, oh, let's the last political person who was absolutely detested,
hmm
I mean, was George Bush,
he was.
George W, and they
Yeah,
hated him.
they did.
Have we talked about Air America Radio? Did you ever hear about Air America?
Did they?
There was a lefty radio network,
Oh,
national radio network.
yeah. They
And
tried to get that going.
it lasted, I can't remember, it lasted maybe 2 years. It hired, who was the biggest name they hired?
They were trying to counter
Well, one of
the
the,
right wing talk
yeah,
radio.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were, and they were
and
they were the
they're going to be the
alternative to Rush
alternative.
Limbaugh,
Yeah.
and they crashed and burned. It
Yeah.
was horrible. It was
hmm
boring. Oh, they had what the biggest name on it was the senator who was on SNL.
Oh, yeah. He was funny.
But he wasn't funny,
No,
and that's the problem.
he wasn't because
Oh,
he's
come on,
just
how can I know?
the guy that got kicked out of the Me Too
Yes.
for grabbing the boobs
Yeah.
on the airplane. I forget his name. I want to say if you come up with the wrong
I
name,
can't
right?
believe I can't remember his name. Al Franken.
Al Franken.
Al
Yeah.
Franken.
Yeah.
Okay. Al Franken was probably the biggest known name on it because he'd been on SNL.
Yeah.
Right? And he's a brilliant guy. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't funny.
Yeah.
He wasn't funny. And most of the guys on Air America were not trying to be funny. They were trying to be, serious analysts or
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah.
And they weren't interesting.
No, you can't dive in very deep to left-wing politics and analyze it in that kind of way because it's going to fall apart.
Well,
It's
all grievance.
grievance and it's all just like feel-good policy. Like you could say like, okay, every child needs, the best schools, and I believe in feeding every kid. But
Right.
if you dig into these policies,
It's like,
you can't dig into them. There's
but they hated George Bush.
They did.
I mean,
Yeah.
like in
They
a
wanted to
way,
impeach him all the
in
time.
in a visceral
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And it was still running, and they were. I mean, it was like everything they could do to defeat George Bush.
Yeah.
And when Obama finally won,
hmm
which of course had nothing to do with George Bush, it had everything to do with George Bush. They were just unbelievably joyful.
Yeah.
It was, and then they crashed and burned. It went out of business. I can't remember what date it did. It doesn't really make any
Air
difference.
America did. Yeah, they couldn't, but they still have NPR, and I thought NPR was going to crash and burn but they're publicly funded.
No, it's not going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
Bill.
Well,
But
hang on.
the
But
thing
you have a
is-
soft spot in your heart for NPR.
No, I don't. Well,
A little bit. I do a little bit. I mean, I listen to some of the shows once in a while, but it pisses me off. They need to make it. They need to have the shows approved. Like, hey, left, you could approve half the shows, and the right could approve half the shows. Because you can't have a publicly funded company that is just far left like that. It's ridiculous. You need to have.
and yet it all basically always has been.
Well, they only get the funding if the shows are approved by the left and half are approved by the right. That's the only way to do it. You can't have a
Well,
nonpartisan.
how would you? Then you would have to have an actual congressional board
You'd have to.
theoretically running it. And besides,
Mhm.
in reality, if you have Republicans and Democrats, you end up getting bipartisan agreement, which means the left wins. I mean, that's what a bipartisan agreement is. The left wins. That's always what
Yeah.
happens, and
Yeah.
that's what would happen in NPR.
Well, they need to do something because right now it's totally ridiculous, you know. But
But the point I was going to make about George Bush is the vitriol
Yeah.
toward George Bush. I was never a huge fan of George Bush. I always kind of thought, his dad was kind of a putz, and he's obviously a rich kid who, I mean, he did a few things of it. Thankfully, he had done a few things outside of politics,
yeah,
and he obviously had his wild child era. And I thought, well, it's like he's done stuff. He's
yeah,
not, at least he's done something outside of politics. And I gave the guy a pass on a lot of his what turned out to be really fuzzy thinking. But the hatred for him was similar to the hatred they have for Donald Trump.
This seems worse, don't you think?
I do think
now
it
it's
seems
over the
worse.
top.
No, it's
Yeah.
but it was pathological for him.
Yeah,
At least if you listen to the Air America version of the interpretation. I actually did. I used to listen to the radio station. I had a job where I could listen to the radio, and I didn't, couldn't listen to it all. And I would go back and forth between these two stations in Santa Barbara, and I would listen to Dennis Miller had a radio program.
Oh yeah,
for a while.
Okay. Well, he
was funny.
He's pretty good, quick, but he's better at like putting together a tight 10 minutes versus dragging it on. Because once you have to cover like an hour, you can't be really good, sharp, put together something.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And he's the king of the esoteric reference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
like a da 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 da. Yeah.
but anyway, I would go back and forth and listen to this stuff. And of course, part of the